Let me ask you something right now, and I want you to sit with this for a moment. What would your life look like if you acted as if nothing was impossible for you? Not just thought it, not hoped for it, but moved like it, spoke like it, lived like it. Because the truth is this, most people are waiting for clarity, waiting for motivation, waiting for someone to tell them it's their time. But waiting is a lie. The door never opens for the person who knocks softly. It flies open for the one who shows up like they own the damn building. And here on Tony Robbins' track, we don't sugarcoat it. We ignite it. You didn't come here to get hype. You came here to wake up, to remember what you already know deep down, that you weren't made to play small, fit in, or ask for permission. You were made to bend the world. And it starts the moment you decide to act as if nothing is impossible for you. 1, act as if nothing is impossible, because that belief changes everything. Everything you want in life starts with one radical shift, the decision to act as if. Not wish, not try, not dip your toe in the water. To act as if nothing is impossible for you, and to do it with such conviction that the world has no choice but to get in line. When you walk through life carrying the belief that anything is possible for you, something powerful happens. You break the invisible mental walls that most people build around themselves. Those walls aren't real. They're constructs made of fear, old stories, the opinions of others, the past, and cultural conditioning. Most people don't live inside cages built by reality. They live inside cages built by belief. And the most dangerous cage, the one that says, maybe I can't. You were not born with limitations. You were taught them. You were told to be realistic, to not get your hopes up, to stay in your lane. That's not truth. That's programming. And the antidote to that programming is action rooted in limitless belief. You don't wait to believe until the results come. You believe first. You act first. You move as if success is inevitable, because that energy creates alignment. That belief puts your body, your language, your tone, your decisions, all of it in a different gear. And that gear is power. They're constructs made of fear, old stories, the opinions of others, the past, and cultural conditioning. Most people don't live inside cages built by reality. They live inside cages built by belief. And the most dangerous cage, the one that says, maybe I can't. You were not born with limitations. You were taught them. You were told to be realistic, to not get your hopes up, to stay in your lane. That's not truth. That's programming. And the antidote to that programming is action rooted in limitless belief. You don't wait to believe until the results come. You believe first. You act first. You move as if success is inevitable, because that energy creates alignment. That belief puts your body, your language, your tone, your decisions, all of it in a different gear. And that gear is power. Acting as if doesn't mean faking it. It means embodying the future version of yourself now, before the results show up. That version of you who's already built the business, created the relationship, led the movement, changed the world. They're not more special than you. They're just closer to decision. They're not waiting for permission to rise. They've already declared who they are. And that's what you have to do. Declare that you're the kind of person who takes massive action. Declare that setbacks don't shake you, because you're operating from a belief system where nothing is impossible. The moment you shift from I hope to I am, from I'll try to I must, your psychology transforms. And when your psychology shifts, your results shift. You see, the universe doesn't give you what you hope for. It responds to what you expect. When you expect miracles, you don't walk like a victim. You don't speak like someone waiting to be saved. You own your space. You walk into a room and people feel something because your energy has weight. And that weight comes from belief. Think of the people who have changed the world. They weren't waiting for proof that something was possible. They weren't looking for permission. They acted like their vision was already real. And eventually, the world just caught up. The only thing standing between you and everything you want is a decision to drop the doubt, a decision to outgrow your excuses, a decision to stop listening to the old identity that says, be careful, don't go too big, what if you fail? Forget that voice. That voice is fear in disguise. You were not built to play small. And you know it. You feel it in your gut. You know you're made for more. That feeling isn't a fantasy. It's truth tapping you on the shoulder. But that truth demands that you act now, not someday, that you take risks, that you stretch, that you walk forward, even when your knees shake. And you do it because you've decided to live like the rules don't apply to you. You live like everything is available. And all that's required is alignment, belief, and relentless execution. Because the moment you act as if nothing is impossible, you stop filtering your decisions through fear. You stop playing defense. You stop asking, what if it doesn't work? And you start asking, what if I never try? The bold don't win because they're fearless. They win because they act like their success is non-negotiable. And when you live that way, when you carry yourself with that energy, the impossible becomes irrelevant. Because you've already decided that your commitment is stronger than any obstacle you'll face. 2, your identity shapes your reality. Become who you need to be. Identity is the ultimate operating system, is the internal software that runs every decision you make, every action you take, every risk you avoid, and every dream you chase. If you want to change your results, you don't start with strategy, you start with identity. Most people are walking through life with outdated programming. They're chasing massive goals with a limited self-image, and they wonder why they self-sabotage, procrastinate, or collapse under pressure. It's not because they lack discipline or talent, it's because their identity doesn't match their vision. Here's the truth. You will never consistently outperform your identity. If you see yourself as someone who's always behind, someone who's not good with money, someone who can't speak with confidence, then no matter how many tactics you learn, no matter how many books you read or coaches you hire, your mind will always find a way to return you to the version of you that feels safe, even if that version is small. Your subconscious is not loyal to your potential, it's loyal to your identity. And your identity is built by repetition, emotion, and language. So even if you can wrap your mind around something rational, and it may come true, and it may find you, and your mind will try to summon it up, that version is small. Your subconscious is, what are the words you speak over yourself every day? What stories do you repeat when no one's around? Are you reinforcing your greatness or repeating your limitations? Change your identity and your entire world changes. You've got to stop identifying with the version of you that's trying. Start identifying with the version of you that's already being. Don't say, I want to be confident. Say, I am a leader. I move with certainty. I speak and people listen. Because when you identify as that person, your nervous system calibrates to match it. Your brain starts filtering information through a new lens. You walk differently. You breathe differently. You attract different conversations, different rooms, different levels of opportunity. Your identity becomes the magnet for your future. But here's the key. You don't wait until the results arrive to change how you see yourself. That's backwards. That's why most people stay stuck. They're waiting for evidence before they believe, waiting for validation before they act, waiting for a sign that it's safe to go all in. But leaders go first. You declare the new identity, and then you live it. And eventually the world catches up to your declaration. Because identity isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. It's shaped by your standards, by what you tolerate, by how you show up when no one is watching. And if you want a new life, It starts by becoming the kind of person who would create it. The habits, the mindset, the environment, the intensity, it all flows from who you believe you are. So when you ask yourself what needs to change, don't just look at your goals. Look at the version of you who achieves them. Study that person. Embody that person. Speak like them. Think like them. Not someday, today. Now, 3, certainty bends the world. Walk with unshakable conviction. Certainty is magnetic. It moves people, opens doors, attracts opportunities, and repels doubt. In a world full of hesitation, second-guessing, and watered-down intentions, certainty is rare, and rare things are powerful. When you operate from deep conviction, you don't just influence your environment, you bend it. People feel it. Life responds to it. The universe starts to shift in your favor the moment you decide to own your space without apology. It's not arrogance. It's not pretending. It's not putting on a mask. It's about choosing to operate from an unshakable inner knowing, a knowing that says, I belong here. I was built for this. I don't need a guarantee. I am the guarantee. The truth is, most people are looking for certainty in the wrong places. They want guarantees from the economy, from other people, from their circumstances. But external certainty is unstable. It's fleeting. It fluctuates. The kind of certainty that bends the world doesn't come from what's happening outside of you. It comes from what you've decided internally. You've got to get to the place where you're so aligned with your mission, your purpose, your intention, that no external condition can override your internal clarity. Because life doesn't give you what you want. It reflects who you are being. And if you're showing up as someone who moves hesitantly, who's waiting to be validated, who's looking around to see if it's safe to be bold, the world will mirror that back to you with hesitation, resistance, and delay. But if you show up with clarity, with purpose, with fire in your voice, and certainty in your posture, people take notice. Opportunities begin to accelerate. Conversations shift. Doubt in others begins to dissolve, not because you convinced anyone, but because you believed so deeply, they had no choice but to believe too. People are drawn to conviction. They don't follow the smartest person in the room. They follow the most certain. You see it in leaders, in entrepreneurs, in world changers. The greats don't ask if it's possible. They assume it is, and they move like it's already done. The reason certainty is so powerful is because it ends inner negotiation. When you're certain, your energy becomes clean. You're not leaking attention into anxiety or hesitation. You're not wasting time explaining yourself. You're not diluting your voice to be accepted. You're focused, direct, and clear. And that kind of presence changes dynamics immediately. You can tell when someone's certain before they even open their mouth. It's in their eyes, their walk, their breath, their body language. They're not looking for approval. They are the approval. They don't react. They respond with intention. That's power. Now, certainty doesn't mean you have every answer. It means you've decided that no matter what happens, you'll figure it out. It's not about knowing the outcome. It's about trusting yourself to rise regardless of the outcome. That kind of belief builds momentum. It builds trust with yourself. And the more you trust yourself, the more the world starts to trust you too. So how do you develop certainty? You start by keeping promises to yourself. You say you're going to do something, and you do it every time. You train your nervous system to believe that your word is law. You stop hesitating. You stop doubting. You stop explaining away your instincts. You act on them. You trust your vision more than the voices around you. And when you fail, because you will, you don't collapse. You recalibrate. Certainty isn't gifted. It's built. It's built through repetition, commitment, and alignment. And the more you build it, the more unstoppable you become. Because the world doesn't bend for people who tiptoe. It bends for people who walk in like they belong, because they've already decided they do for. Fear is a story. Rewrite it with action. Fear is the most convincing liar you'll ever meet. It speaks in familiar tones. It wears the voice of reason. It disguises itself as logic, caution, preparation. But behind all its masks, fear has only one job: to keep you exactly where you are. It wants you to survive, not to expand. And in doing so, it builds an entire story around why you can't, why it won't work, why you're not ready. But here's what most people never realize. Fear is just a narrative, a sequence of thoughts you've rehearsed so often they feel real. But they're not. They're illusions repeated so frequently that your nervous system believes them. Fear is a script, and like any script, it can be rewritten. Action is the editor of fear. You don't need to overcome fear to move. You move and fear loses power. You speak when your voice shakes. You launch when the plan isn't perfect. You make the call, have the conversation, take the risk, and every time you do, you collect new evidence that fear was wrong, evidence that your power is greater than your excuses. And over time, that evidence becomes your new story. You don't need to eliminate fear. You just need to stop feeding it. Fear grows in silence, in inaction, in waiting. It multiplies when you think too much and do too little. But the moment you move, even a small step, the grip of fear weakens, because fear can only survive in the absence of action. Most people spend their lives avoiding fear instead of facing it. They build routines, relationships, careers around not feeling uncomfortable. They chase certainty instead of growth. But that comfort is a trap, because anything you don't face ends up owning you. The only way to expand your life is to expand your capacity to feel fear and move anyway. The strongest people you know, the ones out there building empires, leading movements, making an impact, they don't feel less fear than you. They've just stopped worshiping it. They stopped letting it vote. They made fear irrelevant to their decision-making process. Fear's voice is loudest right before you break through. It gets louder as you get closer to a breakthrough. That's not a sign to stop. That's a sign you're on the edge of growth. And if you can lean in, not pull back, you gain something fear never wanted you to have. Evidence that you can't be stopped. You have to start asking different questions. Instead of, what if I fail? Ask, what if I fly? Instead of, what if they reject me? Ask, what if I influence them? Flip the script. Take control of the narrative. Because fear will always offer you worst case scenarios. But courage lets you see the other side, the vision, the reward, the expansion. And every time you choose action over fear, you cast a vote for a stronger version of you. A version who is no longer chained by doubt. A version who leads. A version who speaks truth, even when it shakes the room. Fear doesn't go away, but it does get quieter when it realizes you're not listening anymore. 5, you move first. Life follows your lead. The moment you realize that life isn't reacting to you, but reflecting you, everything changes. Most people sit and wait for the sign, wait for permission, wait for things to line up perfectly so they feel safe to move. But life doesn't reward the one who waits. It rewards the one who initiates. You have to move first, speak first, decide first, believe first, act first. And when you do, you set a new standard, not only for yourself, but for the way life responds to you. You are the thermostat, not the thermometer. A thermometer reflects the environment. It waits to see what the conditions are before reacting. And when the world presents to you the world's opinion of you, you have to make intentional decisions before reacting. A thermostat sets the environment. It decides the temperature and everything else adjusts accordingly. When you move first, you shift from reacting to reality to creating it. You take the role of leader instead of follower, and everything, your relationships, your business, your emotions, your finances, starts to organize itself around your energy. Most people think the world is random, that success is a mix of timing and luck, that you've got to be chosen or picked. But the truth is, the world responds to signals. And when you send the signal that you are serious, that you are clear, that you are not here to play small, things begin to accelerate. People start noticing. Opportunities start appearing. Not because anything outside changed, but because you did. You see it all the time. Someone decides they've had enough of playing small, enough of tolerating mediocrity, enough of listening to their own excuses. And they move, not knowing how, not having all the answers, not having it figured out, but they move anyway. And suddenly, momentum shows up. Suddenly, resources they didn't know existed begin to appear. Doors open. People call. Life starts responding in real time to the signal they're broadcasting because they went first. Movement is energy. Energy activates life. When you hesitate, you send confusion. When you doubt, you send hesitation. But when you act, even when it's messy, even when it's not polished, you create a wave of clarity that cuts through the noise. It's not about perfection. It's about motion. Because motion builds clarity, not the other way around. You've got to stop waiting for proof. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for the plan to be perfect. Life doesn't give you clarity before action. It gives you clarity because of action. You learn by doing. You grow by moving. You evolve by stepping in. You've got to trust that every step you take forward expands your awareness, builds your capacity, and opens new doors you never could have predicted from the sidelines. And yes, sometimes you'll move in the wrong direction. Sometimes it won't go as planned. That's not failure. That's feedback. That's data. That's momentum disguised as challenge. Because even a misstep carries you further than standing still. The cost of inaction is always greater than the cost of a mistake. When you move first, you build trust with yourself. You build a reputation with your own mind that says, I can count on me. That trust becomes confidence. That confidence becomes courage. And that courage builds a new identity, an identity of someone who leads, someone who goes first, someone who doesn't wait for the right moment because they create the moment. And once you start moving, life starts to move with you, not because circumstances got easier, but because you got stronger, because you stopped outsourcing your power, because you stopped asking for permission to take up space, because you stopped waiting for the conditions to be right and decided that you are the condition. 6, stop negotiating with your potential. Demand more from yourself. You already know what you're capable of. You've felt it in flashes, in moments of clarity, in glimpses of brilliance, when you weren't overthinking, when you weren't apologizing for your greatness, when you weren't shrinking to make others comfortable. In those moments, you met the real you, the version of you that doesn't ask, doesn't hesitate, doesn't settle, and deep down, you know that version is real. But instead of owning it every day, you've been negotiating with it. Negotiating with your potential sounds like this. Maybe later. I'm just not ready yet. Let me wait until things slow down. Let me figure it all out first. It's the internal dialogue that rationalizes average, that justifies delay, that lets you off the hook one more time. And every time you negotiate, every time you shrink, every time you lower the standard to match your mood instead of raising your mood to match your standard, you reinforce a pattern. That pattern becomes identity. And that identity becomes the limit of your life. You can't live an extraordinary life with ordinary effort. You can't expect exceptional results while doing what's comfortable. You can't tap into the greatness inside you while still bargaining with it. Potential doesn't respond to negotiation. It responds to demand. When you demand more from yourself, when you raise your standard, when you decide that average is no longer acceptable, your world begins to shift. It's not about hustle culture. It's not about doing more for the sake of doing more. It's about being more, thinking more clearly, acting with intention, holding yourself to a level where excuses don't live, where the story of your past doesn't dictate the capacity of your future, where you are no longer interested in comfort if it costs you your calling. There is a version of you that is unrecognizable to who you are right now. That version doesn't skip the reps. That version doesn't flinch in discomfort. That version is relentless, focused, awake. That version is already inside you. But that version doesn't show up when you feel like it. That version shows up when you demand it. When you stop negotiating with your potential, your schedule changes. Your habits change. The people you allow around you change. Your boundaries get sharper. Your language gets more direct. Your thoughts become more precise. You start living on purpose, not on autopilot. You start moving through your day with clarity instead of chaos. You stop tolerating the things that drain you and start prioritizing the things that shape you. Demanding more from yourself isn't about being hard on yourself. It's about loving yourself enough to refuse to settle. It's about recognizing that the world doesn't give you what you ask for. It gives you what you insist upon through your actions, your standards, your consistency. And when you start showing up differently, not just on the days you're inspired, but on the days you'd rather hide, that's when the shift happens. You begin to build grit. You begin to sharpen your edge. You begin to realize that discipline is freedom. That commitment is clarity. That high standards are not pressure, they're purpose. You don't chase motivation because you've already made the decision. You don't need to feel like it. You've already committed to becoming it. And the more you demand from yourself, the less you tolerate distraction, delay, or drama. You operate with urgency, not anxiety, urgency. You understand that this life, this window of opportunity, is not unlimited, that your calling doesn't wait forever. And you show up with a fire of someone who knows they're on a mission because you are. 7, confidence isn't a gift. It's a decision repeated daily. Confidence doesn't fall from the sky or arrive wrapped in validation. It's built step by step through choices that reinforce your power. It's a decision to back yourself before the world does. Every time you do the thing you feared, speak up when it's uncomfortable, show up when you'd rather hide, you're casting a vote for confidence. You train your nervous system to trust your own leadership. Confidence is not ego, it's certainty in motion. It's the result of showing up consistently, doing hard things repeatedly, and proving to yourself that you can rely on you. It doesn't come from waiting. It comes from doing 8. The world responds to energy. Show up like you belong. People feel you before they hear you. They read your energy before they register your words. When you walk into a room with ownership, alignment, and certainty, the world adjusts. Energy doesn't lie. If you show up like you're unsure, hesitant, or apologizing for your existence, the world mirrors that energy back. But if you walk like you belong, speak like your words matter, act like your presence carries value, that's what gets returned. The external reflects the internal, and the internal is fully in your control. You decide the energy. You decide how you show up. The world simply matches it. 9, balance is for the stagnant. Momentum is your power. Balance sounds safe, but for most people, it's a disguise for playing small. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. It happens in motion. Momentum is what sharpens your edge, forces clarity, and pulls the best out of you. When you're in momentum, you don't need perfect plans. You just keep moving. You adapt. adjust, evolve. Balance tries to keep all parts equal, but greatness demands that you tip the scale, go all in, and risk being stretched. It's not about burnout. It's not about resentment. There's a saying in the motorcycling industry, people say there's only two types of people, all in and risk being stretched. It's not about burnout. It's not about resentment. Greatness doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. It's about choosing progress over perfection and movement over maintenance 10. You weren't made to fit in. You were made to lead. There's a reason you've always felt like you didn't quite belong in certain spaces. You weren't meant to blend in. You were built to disrupt, to elevate, create change. Leaders aren't always the loudest. They're the most aligned. They move with vision, not validation. You weren't born to echo other people's voices. You were meant to speak your own. Fitting in may feel safe, but leadership feels alive. It starts when you stop hiding, start deciding, and refuse to dim your light to match the room. You've just been given the blueprint, not theory, truth. Not motivation, activation. You now know what happens when you flip the switch. You stop waiting for life to move and realize you move first, and life responds. You stop asking for confidence and start building it through decisions repeated daily. You stop worshiping balance and start using momentum as your power. You stop negotiating with your potential and finally demand more from yourself. And most importantly, you stop shrinking to fit in and remember, you were made to lead. Every one of these principles isn't something you just write down. They're meant to be installed into your identity. You don't need another quote, another playlist, another talk. You need to decide that this is the day you never go back. Because once you think like this, once you act like this, the world doesn't just notice you. It bends to you. If this fired you up, then lock it in, replay it, live it. And if you're ready to keep rising, keep evolving, and keep dominating, subscribe to Tony Robbins' Track for the Mindset that shapes the few who lead the many. Be unshakable. Be unstoppable. Let's go.